So this video is going to be about Maya preferences, how I like to set up some of the settings and preferences in Maya. Now, two ways to get to the settings preferences window. One is down in the lower right. There's this little orange guy being crushed by a gear. He looks like he's trying to run out from under it. Press that little orange guy being crushed by the gear, and you get your preferences window. The other way to get there, Windows, Settings Preferences, Preferences, and we get the same window. Now there's a number of things that I like to change right away. UI elements, I kill the shelf. I find that the shelf is nothing but hieroglyphics. They have changed these icons a couple of times in the years that I've been using Maya, so I don't like continually relearning a bunch of pictographs. Pictographs were replaced by words thousands of years ago, and language works better. So I get rid of the shelf, and I get all of that from the menus. Personal preference. If I'm going to have to move my mouse all the way up to the top of the screen, the menus are right there. Just use them. So I turn off the shelf and I get back valuable screen real estate. Next thing I get rid of is the view cube. It's unnecessary. The rosette down in the lower left corner of each and every panel is what I use to let myself know where I am. When I tumble around, the green Y is always pointing positive Y. The red with the X is always pointing positive X. And in the front, I'll see the green and red telling me I'm viewing the XY axes. In the side view, I'm seeing the ZY axes, and in the top view, I'm seeing the ZX axis as I look straight down in Y. So it's always a good reminder to help train me in learning which axis I'm in, and it tells me what's going on, which way is front, which way is back. And if I want to travel between the views, spacebar really fast, I just move my cursor to any panel, hit the spacebar, and there it is. But I generally work in quad view a lot of the time anyway, so I can work in the perspective view and then check my work in front and side. So I'll jump back up to Windows, Settings, Preferences, Polygons. I really like to show the border edges, and I'll set it to 5. It sort of depends on your screen resolution. The higher resolution of your screen, the greater I like it to be. And now when I delete the face, you can see the border edge is much fatter. And I find that to be really useful, telling me where the borders are of a particular object. Then animation, and I turn on auto key. If you have auto key on and you get used to animating with auto key, it speeds up your production flow. If you're used to animating without auto key, using auto key, you will work faster and it will increase your productivity. If I'm not dealing with particles, I don't want to deal with cache playback, so I'm going to turn that off. For particles, turn on cache playback. Sometimes, depending on the scale of the project, I'll adjust my clipping plane for the default cameras, but normally I leave it as long as I'm not getting weird artifacts in my view plane. Color management, I leave to the defaults. Selection, that's a big deal for me. Select faces with center. Now let's look at that for a sec. I hit save because I've got no changes. Face mode, okay, now I'm getting those faces in the center. So notice when I hover over a face, it doesn't automatically light up to say, hey, select me, unless I'm right over that target. So the face centers gives me a smaller selection area. So that might be a downside. But what I really like about it, say I want to just select the bottom of this box. I can marquee select the face and get the bottom. If I have the default of selection whole face, on. I hit save to make it active. My face has disappeared. If I try to marquee the bottom of the select the bottom of the object, I get the sides as well. If I'm working with the floor or a bottom of an object, lower section, I find it so much better to have selection, select faces with center on, and it just makes getting portions of an object much easier to select. Another huge advantage of selecting by face is when you extrude. So if I hit Control E to extrude, notice that I get these faces on the side. Now if I actually pull the face out and extrude, those faces give me the geometry I want and expect. But very often when working with new people to Maya, they'll extrude, Control E, and think they haven't extruded, and then extrude again, and you get those faces left behind. And that's a clear warning that there's something wrong with your mesh. You've got faces there with no surface area, and there's a lot of different ways you can fix that. But if you see it right away, the best way to do it is Z back. Hit Z to undo, and they're gone, and you've solved that problem before it really chews you up. So faces on center, selecting faces on center is a huge warning, and it solves so many extrusion issues before they become a problem. And those are the changes I make in the preferences, and they make my life better. The one other thing I like to add, you can see it's already on right now, is this heads-up display, and it tells me how many faces are currently in my scene. There's a total of 5 faces, which makes sense. There's a cube. Cubes are 6-sided, but I deleted one. So 5 faces, and none of them are selected. I select one, you can see how many faces I have selected at the moment. And that's really useful for modeling. So I turn that on, display, heads-up display, poly count. That's the one that I want. You can see that's gone away. Display, heads-up display, poly count, and it comes right back. The other heads-up display I use when play blasting or animating is current frame. And that puts my frame down here, and you can see it updates, and that makes it really nice. I can tell when I'm critiquing my animation exactly what frame I'm on as I look at it, and that's really helpful. But I don't need that for modeling, so I'll go back in, display, heads-up display, turn current frame off unless I'm actually animating. And those are the preferences I like. The select faces by center is a big one. Getting rid of the shelf gives me back my real estate. Getting rid of the view cube, I don't need it ever. And cool. Have fun animating.